Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of my James Bond film series reviews. This one here, we're actually talking about the 1985 release of A View to a Kill, which is the seventh and final Roger Moore outing as James Bond. What are my thoughts on the movie? Well, I'm going to actually talk about that now. Now, I'm doing something slightly different because it is raining pretty heavily in Melbourne right now, which is where I live. And I'm just looking outside here and it's coming down, and we have a tin roof, so it does sound a lot worse. So I'm hoping that the audio kind of is okay in this review. I might be stopping and starting frequently, so you might see some jumps where I'm standing and things like that. I'm going to try and keep it as good as possible. But I'm just concerned because I don't want the audio to be really bad with rain and everything like that. But anyway, let's get into the review. So as you know by now, I have been watching and reviewing these James Bond movies probably for about 6 months now. I think I started in January of 2025, and I have been trying to bring them out every 2 weeks, sometimes every 3 weeks. Just depends on how busy I've been, really, to be honest. A View to a Kill for me was interesting because it has been one of the movies previously that I've watched, and I've always been negative on it. The other movies like that were The Man with the Golden Gun. I would watch that movie and I was always negative on that movie. I didn't like the plot. I didn't like the character of Scaramanga, the way he was put into the film. The storyline, cat and mouse game wasn't really there. This film here for me has always been negative because I've always thought Roger Moore looks so old. He's so clearly old in this movie. I'll get to all of that a bit later on. So what I did is, instead of waiting for people in the comments to tell me, you need to rewatch this movie and judge your thoughts on this film, I decided to do something. I watched the movie, I wrote my thoughts, I recorded something. It took about two days, and then I rewatched the movie. And now with the pressure of the review out of my mind, I said, I'm just going to go and watch this movie now. I've done my job. I'm going to go and enjoy this movie. And then I'm going to come back, wait about a week, and then give my thoughts and record what you're watching now. And I feel like that was the way to do it, because leading up to this, I've never been positive on A View to a Kill. I've always tried to kind of avoid it whenever I'm doing a rewatch. I've just never enjoyed it. But now, it's different. All right, I'm going to get into the plot of this movie. I'm just going to get straight into the plot because I think it's probably the best way to do it. So the movie opens in Siberia. James Bond is there. There's snowy mountains all around him. And he finds the body of a deceased 003, another fellow agent of his. On his body, there's a microchip. This microchip, we later find out, has an imprint, and it's a copy of Zorin Industries, and they make microchips. Bond has this escape sequence in the snow, which is pretty actually enjoyable. And is it one of the first times we see the snowboard on film? I think it might be. But anyway, Bond escapes, gets away, kills a couple of people here and there. He escapes. We cut to probably one of the best songs that's been put into the James Bond franchise up to this point. Duran Duran's A View to a Kill. This song is a belter. It is amazing. I can put this song on loop endlessly. There are many more great theme songs to come, but this is easily top 10 quality. This is brilliant and fantastic. Not a great fan of the music video, if you've ever seen that, but the song itself is tremendous, tremendous. And I love it, like always, that John Barry, returning composer, uses the theme song in this movie as almost like a love melody that travels throughout the film. So I always love when he does that, and I think it's always done really well. So Bond escapes. We cut to the theme song. After the theme song, Bond gets back to MI6. That's where we find out that, yes, the microchips are a copy of Zorin Industry microchips, which are owned by Max Zorin, as played by Christopher Walken. And I'm not sure if it's Walken or Walken. I've heard some people... Christopher Walken, that's how I've always said the name. That's how I'm going to say it. So he creates these microchips. These microchips are very highly scientific because they can withstand an EMP blast, which is an electromagnetic pulse, which is created after a detonation of a nuclear weapon. And these microchips can withstand that. So MI6 says to Bond, you've got to go out there, find out what Zorin knows about all this, and do your work, do your job, find out what's going on. So Bond does. He goes out there, he figures out that, yes, Zorin is working with the Russians to a degree. He's working with them. He's working with the Russians. He's creating all these microchips. He's stockpiling all these microchips. And his end game is to go to San Francisco, detonate a massive bomb, and flood Silicon Valley. He wants the San Andreas fault lines to just crumble, like that scene from Superman the movie. He wants those fault lines to crumble and just flood Silicon Valley. And what that'll do is that'll just wipe out the entire competition of microchip places on the market, and he will be the only one. So people will have to come to him. I'm not sure why he needs these to be EMP resistant. I don't think that's ever really mentioned in the film. I think that's just an interesting thing put into the movie so then that it can be implied that nuclear war is a thing that could potentially happen. I'm not 100% sure. I think maybe that's why. But anyway, so Max Zorin is going to blow up the San Andreas fault lines and flood the market and do all this and do all that. And it's Bond's job now to stop him with the help of a geologist called Stacey Sutton. Now, the plot of this movie is fairly similar to Goldfinger, which was released, I think, 21 years before this movie. And it's similar in the way that if you replace microchips with gold, Max Zorin and Goldfinger have pretty much a very similar concept, whereas Max Zorin wants to flood Silicon Valley and have a monopoly of microchips throughout the world, and once he's got that, he can just drive the prices up. Auric Goldfinger wanted to do the same thing to the market, to the stock market with gold. He wanted to irradiate Fort Knox, which is the American gold supply, and then all of a sudden he owns gold that isn't irradiated, and now you've got to come to him for gold and drive the price up, and he's a rich man. It's a simple plot. It's a simple plot in Goldfinger. In this film here, it's a bit more far-fetched, a bit more psychotic and chaotic, but it's done so well here. And it's believable because Christopher Walken plays the role of Max Zorin exceptionally well. Like, I have watched this guy in so many other movies. This is the era of James Bond movies where I'm very familiar with the actors because I grew up in the 80s. I was born in 1984, but I used to work at a video store, so I would watch plenty of movies with these types of actors in them, and it's so interesting to see that the caricature of Christopher Walken that we know now, the real over-exaggerated type of character that he is now, was played all the way back in 1985 with this film, and I think it's done exceptionally well by him. He plays it perfectly. He's charming when he needs to be. He can go from calm to psychotic like that, and he does so multiple times in this movie. And I just love the fact that he'll be talking to Bond at some points in this movie. He'll be talking to him, all of a sudden he'll just start cracking a massive smile and just start laughing. And he does not care who he kills, who he hurts, or who he injures. This guy is deadly, and I love it. I also really enjoy the backstory that he was like the child of a Nazi experiment during World War II. That just kind of, you wouldn't think that would fly in a Bond film, but surprisingly, it works in this movie. And the moment when General Gogol, who is returning from previous Bond films, confronts him in this movie, you just see him flip. You see him actually just snap, and it's a wonderful moment. It's just, there's no remorse. You do not feel any remorse for this character. There's no redeeming quality. He's just fun to watch, and he's a really great villain. He plays it exceptionally well. Christopher Walken does a phenomenal job, and he's worth watching this film alone. One interesting fact that I found out a few years ago that I would love to have an alternate cut of this film with this actor was that David Bowie had originally been offered the role of Max Zorin. He had accepted the role, and then soon after dropped out before filming begun. His reasoning was that he didn't want to be doubled all the time by a stunt actor. He wanted to do his stunts himself, and obviously they're not going to let him do his stunts himself. Unless you're Tom Cruise and you're a producer on the movie, you're not doing that. And it would have been fun because you've got Grace Jones as Max Zorin's henchwoman in this movie, Mayday. And it would have been amazing to see David Bowie, a singer slash actor, acting with Grace Jones, a singer, model, and actress also. That, like I said, that would have been some casting that I would love to see happen. It can't happen, obviously, but not now. R.I.P. Mr. David Bowie. He was a brilliant musician. But it is one of those things where I always think back, oh, imagine what if we got that. Also, what if we got that? What if we ever had a David Bowie themed 007 theme song? That would have been awesome. We didn't, unfortunately. But it's fine. We got Christopher Walken. He's just as good in this movie. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Watch it for him alone. Next up, we have his henchwoman, Mayday, as played by Grace Jones, who is athletic. She's terrifying on screen. She is muscle-bound. She's strong. She's tough. Very sexy. And did I say terrifying? I think I mentioned terrifying. She's played perfectly in this movie. I have never seen Grace Jones in anything before this or after this movie. All I know is her from this movie. I know that she's a singer. I know that she's a model. And I'm always worried when they come into acting roles. But I think she was perfectly cast in this movie. I know from behind the scenes and the audio commentary on the movie, she was a bit of a handful behind the scenes. I think it's implied by Grace Jones during the making of documentary of this movie that she tried to stay in character as Mayday behind the scenes, which I think, well, obviously it works because on screen you totally believe her as that character. But I think it may have hurt her chances behind the scenes with forming friendships and things like that. And I know that Roger Moore has come out and said that he didn't get along with Grace Jones and they didn't get along with each other. But you would never know that on screen. They are so professional, the both of them, on screen, that when they're actually on screen together, which isn't that often in this movie, but when they are on screen, you never know. They're like I said, very professional. They have great chemistry on screen when they do have the screen time. And yeah, truly an amazing henchwoman. And you normally find the muscle-bound henchwoman character or henchman character is normally reserved for the likes of like Oddjob and Jaws. And then you've got Grant in From Russia with Love. But here in this film, she's a tall, black, athletic woman. And she would stand right beside those characters and she'd be just as terrifying. And like there's one part when the KGB and Zorin are having communication together and she just picks up this guy and lifts him over her head. Amazing. Like, I know they would have used wire work and stunt people, but you just believe even when she tames the horse. Fantastic. Obviously, they always put these muscle-bound hench people character roles in the movies and they've got these unbelievable feats of strength that they show. And I do love that with this character because they didn't hold back. They didn't just make her like the femme fatale. They made her the villain, like hench woman that you are terrified if Bond ever comes into contact with her. So I think well done for the producers for that, the writers, and Grace Jones for actually pulling it off, making it believable. And another thing I do like about the character is her turn in this movie. We had the turn of Jaws in Moonraker where he helps Bond aboard the Moonraker space station because it's hinted at that he's not a perfect specimen kind of thing. So they want to repopulate the Earth with perfect specimens. So his turn was well done. It was a little bit hammy, obviously, but it was well done. But in this movie here, Mayday's turn from villain to hero to help Bond is all done because Max Zorin is a psycho. There's a part in the movie, brilliant part in the movie, where they're trying to flood Silicon Valley, so they're going to blow up the San Andreas fault line, and they've got this massive mine area done up. And that, obviously the mine area was all built on the soundstage, 007 soundstage. And you wouldn't believe it. If you looked at it, you're like, we're actually underground in this area. That's how realistic it looks. But yeah, Zorin just turns against his people, pulls out a machine gun and just shoots down all these contractors that are there, detonates an explosion, which in turn floods part of the mine. And he sacrifices even Mayday, who's been his like kind of love interest, but definitely his henchwoman. He's number one side piece on the side. Not side piece, but he's number one woman on the side. And he doesn't care. He just guns them all down, escapes, and he wants to watch the explosion from his blimp. He wants to watch the flood, the San Andreas fault. He wants to watch that crumble and just take out Silicon Valley. That's how psychotic this guy is. And I love him, and I believe the moment when Mayday turns against him, I totally believe it because of that. So well done for them. Well done to her. And like I said, she's wonderfully played in this movie by Grace Jones. The next person I want to speak about is Stacey Sutton, as played by Tanya Roberts. I had to think of her name then. I'm like, oh no, her name is Tracy Roberts in the movie and she's played by Stacey Sutton. No, she is Stacey Sutton in the movie as played by Tanya Roberts. Again, beautiful. This woman is stunningly gorgeous. She is probably one of the most attractive women we have seen in a Bond film in a long time. And unfortunately, she cannot act for the most part in this movie. She comes across as very wooden. Her line delivery is fine. I'm not an actor. I get in front of a camera, as you can see right here, and I am always worried that I'm not talking correctly, not doing something correctly. And I just fluff it off like, oh, well, I'm doing it for YouTube. It's for my entertainment and the 100 or so people that watch or subscribe to me. She's got a lot more pressure on her. She's in a Bond film. These are the biggest movies of all time. And I just find her acting to be a little bit wooden. A little bit wooden. There's parts in this movie where she does act quite well. She is portrayed wonderfully by Tanya Roberts. She looks gorgeous. And then there's a part in the City Hall elevator shaft when it's on fire and her screeching, James! James! Over and over again is like nails scratching against a chalkboard. It is terrible, terrible, but I like her character in this movie still. I like the character of Stacey Sutton. I'm not such a massive fan of Tracy Roberts. But Tanya Roberts, sorry, not Tracy Roberts, Tanya Roberts. But Stacey Sutton as a character is quite interesting. She's a geologist. She has a family business, her grandfather's family business as an oil tycoon, and he's got these pipelines that Max Zorin wants to buy the company to use these pipelines to help flood Silicon Valley. And he offers her money, and that's Bond notices that, and that's how she gets roped into the story. But she's adamantly against selling her business, adamantly against supporting anything in Max Zorin because she knows what he wants to do. Or not knows what he wants to do, but knows he's got negative intentions behind this. And I love the fact that she's roped into the story that way. And I actually do, I like her character. I like her character and her relationship with Bond in the father-daughter relationship that kind of starts off at. Like we're introduced to her fairly early in the movie, but we're not really, Bond and Stacey really don't get proper time together until about midpoint of this movie onwards. And I respect the filmmakers because they've given her a lot of screen time in this movie. But when she's introduced to Bond at her house, that's when I feel their relationship really gets going. And it's good because he does take on almost like the mature father looking after his younger daughter in this movie at the beginning. But when their relationship turns loving and sexual later in the film, that's when I've got issues. Like, if they just kept it as a father-daughter type of relationship, I would have been much happier with her casting, Roger Moore's age, and everything. But it's just, it doesn't play that well in the later, say, 10 minutes of the movie. That was my cat, sorry, if you heard that. But as I was saying, it doesn't play that well in the last, say, 10 minutes of the movie. It's always a little bit... I'm always on edge whenever they try and put an older Roger Moore with a much younger female character. And it only really happens in this film, and it kind of happens in For Your Eyes Only. In Octopussy, they got away with it because they cast Maud Adams, an older, more mature woman, and she was only like 39 or 40 years old at the time of filming the movie. But it worked perfectly for those films. Here, much more noticeable. But I still really like her character in this movie. She's part of some of the big action sequences. She really plays the character well. But just some of that wooden line delivery. I had the same issues with Lois Childs as Dr. Holly Goodhead in Moonraker. And I didn't forgive her in that film, and I'm not going to forgive the wooden acting in this film. She just does not sell it as well as what I would like. Now, speaking of age, I don't like the fact that I have to mention it, but Roger Moore is clearly aged out of the role here. I think that's a problem with some of the James Bond actors. I think the producers get way too comfortable with the actor, they're happy with the actor's performance, happy with the money coming in, and they keep the actor on. They've done it with Sean Connery. They've done it with Roger Moore. They will do it later on. Here it's really noticeable. Roger Moore has come forward and said between Octopussy and A View to a Kill, he had some work done. He has some cosmetic surgery, I believe it was, around his eyes. He had his mole removed. And when he first appears on screen in Siberia, and he's in the snow and he's fully covered and you see his face close up, I always get a little bit he's aged a lot. Like, leading up to this movie, he always looked younger than his age. This film here, he looks older than what his actual age is. And I don't like bringing it up because I don't like to be negative in that regard, but it is highly noticeable, and it does, unfortunately, affect a little bit of my enjoyment with the movie. There are moments in this film when the action sequences, you can clearly tell they're a stunt double, and I don't like mentioning that all the time, because normally if the stunt double is done well, I don't care if it's James Bond the actor or if it's James Bond the stunt actor doing the scene. But here it's really noticeable, and it really just kind of pulls you out a little bit. Like, you can tell that Roger Moore isn't in as better shape as he once was. And that's fine, the actor is older, but the movie still tries to play it up as this guy is in his mid to late 40s rather than in his mid to late 50s. And I feel that it kind of shoots itself in the foot a little bit, because the henchmen he fights are older, he's wearing clothing that isn't as tight-fitting as it once was, and the stunts, like I said, highly noticeable. And the stunts in this movie are fantastic, like the Eiffel Tower, the Paris sequence with the Eiffel Tower, the chase sequence that follows, the beginning sequence in the snow with the Siberia when he's on the skis and the jet ski. Some wonderful, even the mine shaft at the end on the San Francisco Bridge. There are some real wonderful sequences in this movie, but I just feel like they tried to mask his age by just putting older characters around him. And you do notice it heavily when he's played off alongside Tanya Roberts. When he's standing beside Tanya Roberts, when he's with Max Zorin, it's highly noticeable. Even there's a part in the movie where they've got a sequence where he comes out of the water He meets a Russian agent, Paula Ivanova, and they go to a spa together. And every time I look at that sequence, I always cringe just slightly because you can clearly tell that they're trying to just hide his figure. And I really don't. I'm not a picture of perfect health at all. He looks better than I do. So I'm not really one to say it, but this is the guy that they're putting on screen as James Bond. And I feel like it's a bit of a blame put toward the producers because they should have just let Roger Moore exit with Octopussy and hired a new actor to replace him in this film. And I would have been much happier, I think. Like, I have to say that this is Roger Moore's final outing. This is 7 films deep, and Roger Moore is exactly what the James Bond franchise needed. Let's not lie. Sean Connery was around 1971, I believe, was Diamonds Are Forever. And he looked old, pudgy, bored. He only returned for the money, which he put to good use, but you can see his visible disdain for the producers in that movie. He's clearly only there for the reasons I already mentioned, and it shows for the most part on screen, unfortunately. And I feel like it ruins his first movies before returning because of that reason. With Roger Moore, it's different. Roger Moore from beginning, Live and Let Die, to the end, A View to a Kill, he's always charming, a ladies' man, and he's always professional on screen and behind the camera. There has never been a report of Roger Moore being rude. There's never been a report of Roger Moore being anything but a gentleman. Even with Grace Jones, he handled situations with her brilliantly, apparently, according to behind the scenes. And that was when Roger Moore was alive. So since his passing, there's never been any reports of Roger Moore being anything but a gentleman. And he puts that out on camera. He's always treated the character James Bond with respect, the series with love, and his audience, his fans, with the same respect. And that's why I love Roger Moore. I have always put Roger Moore toward the bottom of my actors playing James Bond. But after this year, 2025, has really turned me around on Roger Moore as James Bond. He just constantly moves up on my list. And I absolutely adore his movies. Even this film here, A View to a Kill, I really, really, really enjoy this movie. I have so much fun watching this movie, and I would highly recommend it to anybody that is after a fun James Bond movie. I know that there's been... I know it's been... treated with negativity in the past. I know, like I said, Roger Moore's age has been a bit of a thing with people. It's been a bit of a thing with me. But it can't change the fact that when he is on screen, you just kind of put it on the back burner. And he's fantastic. Like, there's... And I know that they hide it well because, like I said, they cast older actors in the supporting roles. It's noticeable when you're at MI6 and you've got M, you've got Moneypenny, and you've got Q, who are all around the same age as Roger Moore, and they all look older. And I went back and I looked at the early Lois Maxwell, who plays Moneypenny. I looked at her earliest scenes in the Sean Connery era to her scenes now with Roger Moore, and I'm like, she's still beautiful and graceful, but it's just like seeing these actors age up. It's just, I don't know. It kind of hits you. It hits you here. But this is kind of an overview review of not only A View to a Kill, but it also feels like with the next film with Timothy Dalton coming on board, it feels like a shot of adrenaline has been kicked into the James Bond franchise at that point. It feels like a big refresh, not a reboot. No. We didn't get that until Daniel Craig, but it feels like a refresh. New faces, new characters, almost like a new era. But let me get back to this movie. A View to a Kill, Roger Moore, A View to a Kill. This movie is fun. It's a highly enjoyable movie. Yes, it's very reminiscent of Goldfinger, and I'm not going to try and deny that. It is. It has many elements that made Goldfinger are present here, plot-wise. But I think it's done really well. I think Max Zorin is a wonderful villain. I think his henchwoman Mayday, played by Grace Jones, is beautiful and terrifying at the same time. So I think she fits that role perfectly. That heavy role, that henchwoman character, plays it perfectly. Tanya Roberts as Stacey Sutton, whilst she does have some wooden acting, also fantastic. Also beautiful. She's played as well as she can be played. And I think some of the scenes we get, some of the scenery, the locations, Paris, beautiful. The action sequences, fantastic. San Francisco, I can finally say, as an Australian, that I have been to a Bond location. My wife and I, on our honeymoon in 2019, went to Fisherman's Wharf, went to San Francisco. So it was like my sneaky little thing to get my wife to go to a Bond location. And San Francisco is beautiful. I haven't been there since 2019 and we're in 2025 now. I don't know if it's still the same, but it is beautiful. Alcatraz Island. But what we see in this movie, the views from the blimp itself, the Golden Gate Bridge, just the scenery in general. I am such a big fan of just the way James Bond franchises, or the James Bond movies, show off the locations. They're like a postcard. It's like, I wonder what this is like. Throw on that James Bond movie and you'll see, and it shows the best of those cities and those countries, those places that you want to visit. And I think this film does it well. And I can actually say that I adore this movie. I'm really happy that I took a little bit longer to release this review. Really happy with it. I not emotional, but I do get emotional whenever the Roger Moore era comes to an end. I get less emotional with Sean Connery, maybe because we had his 5 movies, then we had George Lazenby, and then we came back to Sean Connery, and then we went into the Roger Moore era. I get less emotional with Sean Connery, but with Roger Moore it kind of really hits me hard because we've seen this guy now on screen for what feels like 12 years as James Bond, maybe 13 years as James Bond. When was Live and Let Die was 1973 and this is 1985, so 12 years. And yeah, it's kind of hard to just be moving on from the Roger Moore era. He's always been like I said, a Bond that I've always kind of not really loved as much as the others, but 2025 reviewing these movies has just proven to me that this guy here is one of the best James Bonds that we had on the screen. And I'm so happy with A View to a Kill. I think that everyone should go out and watch it. Try and forget about the age. Try and forget about the fact that Roger Moore does visibly look older. And just put this film on out of order, watch it, have a good time, because that's how I am when I watch this movie now. I can honestly say that I'll be putting it on, watching it out of order, and I can watch it on repeat. I've watched it about 12 times now for this review, plus the audio commentary, plus the behind the scenes documentary, and each time I've enjoyed it more and more and more. And I think that this movie here is moving up on my list too. So that's how I'm going to end this review. I am going to be bringing up some stats though now, so give me a moment while I unlock my phone and bring up the stats. So yeah, in conclusion, love it all. But let me talk about the James Bond kill count. Now, surprisingly, we only have four kills, and all of them happen, 3 of them happen at the very beginning of the movie in the pre-title sequence, and then one of them is at the very end with Max Zorin. And even that's a little bit debatable, but we're going to go that he did kill Max Zorin in this film. Locations, we have Siberia, which is in Russia. We have London, England. We have Paris, France. And we have the San Francisco beautiful location in America. So 4 locations And finally, ladies bedded, I have 4 here. I've got the agent that he meets up with in Siberia, female agent, Mayday, yes, Polar Ivanova, who is a Russian agent that was originally, I believe I heard correctly here, originally Polar Ivanova was meant to be the character Triple X, as played by Barbara Bach. She was meant to return for this film to film a 5-minute sequence in this movie. She didn't return, either she didn't want to or they didn't offer it to her officially, but we got Polar Ivanova and another beautiful woman in this movie. She's great. And finally, on Bond's bedded list, we have Stacey Sutton. And like I said, if they didn't put that in this movie, if they just kept them as a, say, father-daughter relationship, I would have been just as happy. I would have been even happier with this movie. But to conclude this review, thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Sorry about the delay in bringing this review. And also, if you haven't hit the notification bell with a subscribe, please do so. The reason I say that is because when I released my previous review, Octopussy, it was not showing up in any subscription feeds at all. Maybe for a few people, but what had actually happened is I released the review as I normally do, like midweek, early morning midweek kind of thing. I had forgotten that I released it on a certain day, so in Australia it would have been Wednesday morning. And when I was at work, I thought, oh, I'll check out my review and see how it's going. And it didn't show up in my subscription feed, my personal subscription feed. And I'm like, well, that's a bit interesting. And then I went and I looked at the views and I'm like, oh, that's very low. Even that's a bit interesting. And then I asked my wife, hey, honey, have you watched my video at all? And she goes, oh, it's not showing up. When are you releasing it? And I said, well, it released like 12 hours ago. And she's like, oh, it's not showing up at all. And I got home, deleted the upload, re-uploaded it, released it a couple of days after that just to give it a little bit of time. And all of a sudden, it's now showing up in subscription feeds. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I was shadow banned or not. I have no idea. But if you can hit the bell notification, that will alert you whenever I put up a comment, a channel post, or whenever I upload something like a short or an actual review. And it just makes you more aware of what's going on. If not, hit me up on Instagram. It's up in the corner here or here. And that's about it. That's all I can really say. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for liking and subscribing. And I appreciate you, and I hope you're doing well. Let me know in the comments below what you think of, well, let me say it like this. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Roger Moore's era as James Bond as a whole. Let me know what you think about A View to a Kill in general. And also, what's your favourite Bond theme song? Because I'm very interested to know, because this one here by Duran Duran, easily in my top 10. And I'm interested to know what everyone else's is. So until then, bye. And I will return with my next review, which is the new James Bond actor with Timothy Dalton, The Living Daylights. So thank you very much for watching. Take care, look after your loved ones, and see you next time.